because we all get wrapped up in this stuff so much, and then we think, well, what the hell do we do? Do we not read the news at all and then become disengaged with everything? Or do I remain engaged, but at the same time have to deal with all this stuff? So that's what this is all about.
The millennial generation is as follows.
Welcome to
Surrounded by Idiots
Radio Podcast.
Helping to make your life at least 1% better every single day. This is the Surrounded by Idiots Radio Podcast. Hey, this is Tony Dufresne, PhD, your host. As usual, welcome back. I hope you had a great week. If you're listening in real time, it is June the 28th of 2018. And if you're not, then it doesn't really matter because I'm going to talk about something that you can use now or you can use when you listen to this, regardless of when it is. So this week, I got really wrapped up in the news cycle, and over the years, I tend to kind of go into news and out of it, depending upon how interested I am. With the dumpster fire that's been going on ever since the election here in the States, and with Brexit, and now with all the populist stuff happening, I think Italy happened somewhere else too. With all that stuff happening, it tends to wrap you in. It tends to suck you in because you think that it's the end of the world because all of this stuff is happening that shouldn't be happening. You would think that as human evolution progresses, we become more empathetic to everybody. We want to become more inclusive with everybody. It's a global economy. That's what the internet did. That's what technology has done. It has connected all of us. And you would think that would be the natural flow, would be to become more connected and more accepting of things, and everybody kind of work together a little bit better, which is really what is called expansive human evolution. And that is not happening, and the reason is because I think all this happened too fast. The technology happened too fast. The internet happened too fast. It was too big of a wave, and what happens is anytime something happens too fast, there's a lot that's left behind. And in the case of what I'm talking about here, a lot was left behind in regards to people in the U.S. and this transition into this different type of world and different type of economy. There are some people that weren't psychologically ready for it, emotionally ready for it, or economically ready for it because they're still stuck in the old system. The old system being all the old jobs and how they do stuff, and they were left behind. And they're not being heard, and that's what happened, and that's the reason why we have the current political situation that we have today. So all that being said, I get wrapped up in this stuff because it's one of those things where I'm like, don't you understand that this is going to be okay? This is good for everybody. But they don't because they're looking out. It's fear. It's just a fear-based thing. And again, if you look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, please look at that because it describes everything that's happening in life and that ever will happen in your life, and you get a really good idea where you sit currently. But it's in the Maslow thing, people are operating on like the first two low levels of survival, and it's fear, it's food, clothing, and shelter. They just want to be able to put food on the table. And I get that. It's not like I don't understand that. Because don't we all? I mean, isn't that the whole point in doing all this stuff is to take care of that stuff first, take care of our loved ones, create some really good relationships, and then have a kick-ass life and do fun stuff. I mean, that's really, I would think that would be the goal of most people. So all that being said, it has led me to finally doing something to where I'm going to make a shift. I'm going to make a shift in the show. And it's because of headline stress disorder. And that's the title of the show today is Your Cure for Headline Stress Disorder. Now, what is headline stress disorder? If you take the words, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I'm going to go through it real quick. I'm going to go through what it is, where it came from, which is kind of an interesting story. And it just came up. It literally, there was this one guy a couple years ago that just coined this phrase. But it makes perfect sense. And it just came up. And I think it's important to kind of, because we all get wrapped up in this stuff so much, and then we think, well, what the hell do we do? Do we not read the news at all and then become disengaged with everything? Or do I remain engaged, but at the same time have to deal with all this stuff? So that's what this is all about. So what it is, what headline stress disorder is it was a phrase coined by Dr. Stephen Stosny in 2016. And I think it was a piece in the Washington Post. It was not a piece in the Washington Post. And what he said is, for many people, Continual alerts from news sources and blogs and social media and alternative facts feel like missile explosions in a siege without end, and emphasizing it in many ways, the current news can leave us feeling helpless to create change. Now, Dr. Jana Scrivani further explained why. I think she was on NBC when she talked about this. She said, headline stress disorder feels all too common. Being tuned into the 24-hour news cycle may fuel a lot of negative feelings like anxiety and sadness and hopelessness. Subjecting ourselves to an endless barrage of tragedies and trauma can foster a real sense of being out of control, which basically they're both saying the same thing. So, because an unrelenting exposure to panic-inducing headlines can trigger your limbic system. And here we go again. I talk about the limbic system all the time. This is that part, that primitive caveman brain part, the first little piece of the brain stem that has the amygdala. And this is where the fight, flight, or freeze response is. This is your initial impulse reactions. And this is what all of this stress and what the news is doing. And by the way, as a side note, Trump's doing it on purpose because he's trying to screw with your head. So you just say, fuck it. Or you get so stressed and overwhelmed that he just kind of does his thing. And this is what he's been doing in business for 30, 40 years too. So it's no surprise. So because this is getting right into your limbic system, it's causing symptoms such as nervousness and agitation and fear. And that's why headline stress disorder may feel very similar to anxiety, because it really is. It's triggering the same stuff as legit anxiety. Not to mention the chronic stress can also cause symptoms like muscle pain, a weak immune system, gastrointestinal health issues, changes in heart rate and more. I mean, it just screws you up completely. Mentally, physically, emotionally, just a mess. So I also want to bring up a study that was released by the American Psychological Association just last year, and it said that nearly 57% in the United States reported that the current political climate was a significant source of stress. What's more, 63% of the study participants reported the future of the United States was somewhat significant stressor in their lives. So, all that being, this shouldn't be news to you either. I mean, if you're listening to this, I'm assuming you're probably a part of this whole thing where you're like, what the hell's going on? And I need to do something about this. So it turns us to the question. The question is how to stay knowledgeable about and engaged in current events, how to be a part of the whole thing, how to read the news and understand what's going on and be on top of current events while protecting your mental health, while not getting wrapped up in all the stuff and getting in having the stress take over. Now, there's a couple steps here. I'm going to go through the Captain Obvious steps first, and it's push take off your push notifications on your phone, and avoid your social media, what I like to call loops, social media loops. Those are the people that you have in your feed, your friends of friends, and also the pages that you have that that's their job. Their job is to constantly alert, and they want to keep everybody on top of things. And I have no issues with what they're trying to do. I have a very good friend of mine that posts, 10 or 15 things a day having to do with this kind of stuff. And I appreciate what the intent is, but it can take you over the edge. And even with certain things like, I like Dan Rather. Dan Rather's got a good page, but he's signaling the apocalypse, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. But if you're constantly reading that stuff and constantly exposed to that stuff, it's going to have an impact, and that's what we're trying to get away from. So that's the first Captain Obvious. That's the obvious stuff that you can do. You can also take action, and this is another thing that you might not have thought of. Initially, I didn't think about this, but you can take action to where you feel as though you're a part of the solution instead of just hearing about the problems, which means you can donate to organizations that you feel are doing what you feel as though, or speaking for you in regards to what their actions are, or what they want to accomplish, what they want to change based on what's going on now. Or you could volunteer with an organization and do some good, because and this is where it comes down to the whole psychological and philosophy twist here. If you donate or you volunteer and or both. What happens is that you make an automatic shift, and you shift from being a consumer to a creator. And when you shift from a consumer to a creator, that's where all of a sudden now you bring it inside of yourself. You become empowered. You are empowering yourself to be a part of the solution. And what happens is when you do, your focus goes into yourself. Your focus goes into you being a creator of good, of what your intentions are. And when that happens, then a lot of the stuff that's coming at you, a lot of the stuff that you'd be consuming, it sort of puts a shield up. And you don't feel as much. You don't get stressed out as much because you're like, this is going to happen or this is happening right now, but I'm going to do something about this, and that's going to make you feel good. And that's the whole thing about empowering versus, remember what I talked about at the very top of the show in regards to the two psychologists that were talking. They were saying about people feeling hopeless or helpless. And if you feel helpless, then empowering yourself is the opposite, and that's why that's better. And so the last thing that you can do is to create a better environment for you to cure your headline stress disorder is reading more inspiring news. Because, I mean, this is another obvious statement. There's a lot of stuff that goes on around the world, in your neighborhood, on your block, every single day. You don't get it fed to you because certain things take priority. Certain things get the headlines. Certain things get people to read the articles or watch the TV shows, and that's why they're putting that on. I mean, let's just be honest with you. All that being said, I think it's very important to just kind of look outside of that and maybe do a little, and it'll take some searching unless you have certain things like Upworthy in your news feed. That'll bring you over some pretty cool stuff. Or even Bustle's got some pretty cool stuff. Elite Daily, Mashable, Vox, they have some. But you have to set it up to where you are now being exposed to other things that are going on. Because if you're constantly, and this is just Psychology 101, if you're constantly bombarded by negative in terms of that creating the world around you, that dictates how you see things. What happens is it's called framing, and it frames your world as a certain way. Now, I always use it as an example. You know, when you go on a roller coaster or you go on at Disneyland, or probably Disney World too, at Splash Mountain, and at the end you have there's a camera and it takes pictures of everybody in your car going down the thing, and people have crazy looks. They have it now. This is kind of like that, because if you took that picture and you just did one row of people, let's say the first row, and the first row is two people that are scared shitless that they're falling down this 50-foot drop and they're going to get wet on the bottom. So their face looks like they're like the face of death. I mean, they're scared out of their minds. If you just take that picture and you frame that the reality of that ride would be, it's a very scary ride and you feel as though you're going to die. But if you take the next row back behind them and it's two other people who are having the absolute time of their life, and their hands are up and they're shouting or they're high-fiving and they're having a great time, and you just look at that part of the photo, that's what you're going to think about the ride. The ride is amazing. It's unbelievable. It's the funnest thing you'll ever do in your whole life. Then you can go to the third aisle back there, the third row of seats, and it'd be a couple people that are the guy's engaging, proposing to his to his fiance, or they're holding up a sign, or they're flashing you or something, and that would give you a whole other thing, like it's exciting or it's sexy or something. Again, it's all how you frame your life. And coming back to what I'm talking about in terms of the headlines, if you just listen to the headlines, if you just see the world as those problems, it's gonna stress you out. It's gonna create a really negative vibe around you, and it's not the whole picture. And that's the whole point. The whole point is to understand that there's a lot more stuff going on, and there's some really good stuff going on. And I got to tell you, I don't know how much traveling you've done, or how many people that you know, or how many friends that you have, but there's some really great people out there. Most people are really great people, and all they want to do is they want to have a decent life and they want to raise their kids or have friends, and they don't want to piss anybody off. They just want to kind of cruise and do their own thing, and I think that's most people from what I've seen and what I've heard. So let's take a look and let's shift the frame now. Let's shift the frame from those two people that are scared to death in the front row. Let's shift it back to the guy holding up a sign and the chick that's flashing everybody type of thing, and look at a little more of a fun side of everything that's going on, and look at a more of a positive aspect. It doesn't mean the negative goes away. That's not what that means. I had a client that was not cool with this for a long time because she said, I don't want to put my head in the sand. Not the case. You're not putting your head in the sand. All you're doing is you're reframing your reality based upon a bigger picture and the understanding that if you had your choice of choosing between the ice cream sundae on the table and a big pile of dog shit on the table, which one would you pick? Would you choose to continue to say, oh my God, I can't believe this pile of crap is on the table. I can't believe it. Why would you put this in front of me? Or would you go, damn, ice cream sundae, grab the ice cream sundae and just, bail to the back of the room so you don't have to deal with all the crap on the desk? That's the whole point, and that's the essence of reframing. It's not burying your head in the sand. It's understanding all that stuff's going to happen. You can continue to be engaged, but you balance yourself out with the fact that there are many, many other great, amazing things happening at all at once at the same time. There's a ton of stuff going on, and I'm going to share 3 things with you. And from now on, this show will be based more on that, based more on the framing of the great things and the positive things and the things that will help you go along daily and to expand and become a better overall version of yourself, to the best version of yourself, which you'll never get to the best because you might get there one day and then the next day you'll better that, right? Because that's the whole thing about being 1% better every single day. So a better version of yourself every single day. So I'm going to share 3 things. And these are the 3 things that came up for me this week. There is on today.com there was a woman, she 27-year-old Chloe Fosberg of Southampton, England, recently broke up with her boyfriend of 4 years. Well, what happened was her sister then pulled up important family photos that Chloe's exes appeared in, because if you're with somebody for 4 years, you're going to be in a lot of pictures, maybe weddings and bar mitzvahs and all that stuff. So her sister, this Chloe's sister, pulled up all these photos where Chloe's ex appeared in with her and replaced him with pictures of Chloe's cat. So Chloe says, my cousin got married and my boyfriend was in all of the official pictures. So when we broke up 6 months after the wedding, my sister thought it'd be fun to replace him with a picture of my cat. It was a joke, really. I felt a bit bad to have the pictures ruined with photos of him, but my sister made me feel a little bit better about it. And actually, after they sent it to the boyfriend, since it was a while afterwards, he thought it was pretty funny. So, but I thought that was pretty. And you got to see. I'm going to put the link in the show notes. You got to see the picture. It's not just a cat picture. It's one where he's like standing up, and it's just it's just weird. It's hilarious to the point where I included it in this show. The second little news story I want to share with you came from MSN.com, and the headline was, special needs teacher dies with a secret fortune and leaves $1 million to her former school. So friends and former colleagues were shocked to learn 2 months ago that Via Cava, who died in 2011 at age 89, had quietly amassed a fortune worth several $1 million and had left $1 million of it to New Jersey's Dumont School District to fund college scholarships for special needs students. That's a human being. That's somebody that we can all... I mean, that's amazing. I'm not going to say anything about that, anything else. That leads me to the third thing, and for me, even though that special needs thing is awesome, this thing is by far, you want to spend the best 23 and a half minutes of your whole week, I suggest you do this. If you are James Corden, Late Show, James Corden, if you watch him, and of course Carpool Karaoke, I don't know anybody who doesn't know about Carpool Karaoke, mostly just from YouTube, and it's really good. Some of them are not super great, probably because I just don't like the artist particularly, but this one, This is the best 23 and a half minutes of TV I've seen in a really long time, and it was with Paul McCartney. Now, I have a certain connection with Paul McCartney because being older, I grew up with the Beatles. Well, I grew up, actually, the Beatles ended, I was young still, but I literally grew up with the Beatles, and even in my bands, when I first started doing my bands years and years ago, we played mostly Beatles songs because they have been the biggest influence, musical influence to me as a musician and just as a person of my whole life. So all that, so I have that connection. But even if you don't have that, and if you're younger and you might know who Paul McCartney is, it's not really about who he is. It's just about two guys getting together, and Paul he goes back to Liverpool, and he takes a ride around Liverpool, and he stops at the pubs they used to play at. He stops at the old house that he grew up in, and it's all about going back into the fact that the music was positive, and it was about love, and it was about friendship, and it was about sharing, and it was just, there's a lot of magical energy in that, and they really tapped into that. And James Corden is such a huge fan, you can tell. And I want to read you a little bit of an excerpt from the article that came with the video, and this is from NPR, but you can see the video all over the place. Just go to, I'm going to put a link in my show notes, but if you don't want to go through that, just go to YouTube and go to Paul McCartney Carpool Karaoke. It's amazing. It's so awesome and heartwarming, and the fact that this one guy has had such a huge positive loving influence on so many people, and the music that he created, and him with John Lennon and George Harrison, it'll go on forever. And it's one of those things where it's kind of that light in the sea of shit that's been going on, to the fact that this is a creator that he just gave his passion, and he gave his purpose. And I want to read this. It says, the mood switches when Corden asked McCartney about the inspirational positivity of so many of his songs. And McCartney tells the story of being visited in a dream by his late mother, who advised him that things would be all right and to just let it be. Now, McCartney wrote the song "Let It Be" as a result, and as he and Corden finished singing the song, Corden started crying. I mean, he started weeping because it was so powerful. And that's really the whole point. That, plus the fact that they go to one of the pubs in Liverpool that the Beatles first played at, and they were behind this curtain, and they just surprised everybody in the pub, and people were going ape shit that McCartney's playing all these old Beatles songs in this pub in the middle of the day on some random day. It's so much fun to watch this. And again, it's 23 and a half, give or take, minutes. You will not be disappointed. Whether you know all about the Beatles or you don't know all about the Beatles, it still will be amazingly inspiring. Amazingly inspiring to see how this guy, how something that's so positive can impact other people, and people actually having fun. So it's great. That's the show. I hope you like it. I hope that you get on board with this whole positivity thing and reframing things. I'm going to do this. I'm tired of talking about all the crap, and I want to bring out some good stuff. I want to show that side, as well as wrap it in regards to how you can use it, or what kind of philosophy and psychological take that we can get from that. You can go to javabud.com, JAVABUD, to see all of the videos and podcasts, and it's on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud for the podcast. YouTube, I have a YouTube channel. It's The Java Bud, and all the videos are there. And that's about it. If you have any questions, if you have anything to add, if you have any positive stories or something that's really cool that you know about, please send it to me. It's Tony@javabud.com. I'm always looking for stuff like that, because it's, why not, right? Let's balance each other out. And be good to each other while all this crap is going on, and realize that it's like McCartney said, you gotta let it be. It'll be okay. Everything will be okay. Out of the 53 years I've been around, there's been some shit that's happened around the world, and things tend to turn out okay, even though it doesn't look like it right now. So I hope you have a great week, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.